Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. One of my favorite games is Wallenstein, or there's also a version of it called Shogun. These are games that use what is called a cube tower to attack. Both of them are very robust games by Dirk Henn. Well, Mike Elliott worked with Dirk Henn to make a new game called Immortals. Now, to be clear, this is not a full review of the game. This is just my first impressions after I play, and I want to kind of show you how the game works. I'm very excited about this game. As you can see, it's a really, really big game. And in this game, it takes this cube tower and mixes the fighting with different fantasy races and the idea of light versus darkness. Here's a bit of how the game works. Okay, so first we're going to show a little bit of how a battle works. I know this is kind of an odd way to start, but this is the cube tower. It's essential to this game. And here in my hand I have 8 black cubes, and let's say they're attacking 8 red cubes. So I'm going to take all these and dump them into the top of the cube tower. And we're going to see what comes out. Now we see 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 red cubes, and 2, 4, 6 black cubes come out. Now first of all, it seems like magic. We'll get back to that in a second. But red had, and a blue cube came out. What's all that about? Red cubes had more come out, so they win the battle. However, the black cubes all die, so there's 6 of them, but they also take out 6 of the red cubes too. So 3 red cubes survive. Now you saw me put 8 red cubes in. That's because if you look closer, inside the tower itself, you can see that there's little shelves that will catch the cubes on it. And in fact, if I shake it, all these cubes were caught in the tower. So, for example, I'll throw in a huge pile of cubes here, and you will actually at the beginning of the game see this with cubes. So you can see a lot of cubes came out there of all different colors. But that many cubes were stuck in the tower. Now this can be strategic because cubes can be in the tower, and you can say, well, I know some of my cubes are in there, so I'm going to do an attack and hoping that some of the cubes that are in there will be dislodged and knocked out. So now that we see how battles happen, we can look here at the main board. Now around the main board is a scoreboard, and the scoreboard is important because you're going to be scoring, and that's how you win the game. You're going to be scoring for different buildings. I should also do a quick mention here that everything you see here is finished artwork and all that stuff, but the game, all the components are not complete. This is a near finished copy, an early copy. We'll be doing a full review with the finished copy later on. But you're going to be building different buildings in these spots. You can be building portals or castles. Some buildings are going to get you points every scoring phase, and all buildings will get you points as you build them. You're going to do this by controlling regions on the board. And so you have your armies will be around the board in different spots, and there'll be a whole lot more armies than this on the board. And you'll be attacking and moving from one spot to another spot. You'll also notice that there's 2 sides of the board. This is the whole focus of this game, where we have the light and the darkness. And you will occasionally be able to build warp gates that let you go from one to the other. But taking control of one can cause someone to lose control of another spot on the light side. And when units on this side die, they will come back on this side. And when units on this side die, they will come back on this side. So the board here is essentially a spot with a lot of different territories on that players are going to be fighting over to control. Each player is going to have 2 big boards that are going to show the different races. Your 2 races, one from the light side, one from the dark side. So you might be humans and night elves, halflings and necromancers, Amazons and demons, elves and orcs, and dwarves and trolls. These are going to show you how many cubes you get in different starting areas, and players will take turns drafting them and putting them on the board. And if you have more than 2 players, you'll add in some more spots. They'll also show you your starting area and how much money and energy you get. Once you've done that, you're going to be flipping these over, and these are actually going to connect together. This is going to be your board over the course of the game. You have limbo areas. When units die from the light side, they'll go here, and then they'll come back on the board on the dark side. When units on the dark side die, they go here, and they'll come back in on the light side. But what players are going to be doing on this board is they're going to be playing cards. Players will be playing cards when you control a region, you will get a card for that region. The card counts for light side or dark side, and if you lose control of one of those sides, this card can go to somebody else. But at the beginning of each round, players will be placing these cards in different areas. A card placed here And once they're all placed, players will take turns revealing cards and doing them. A card placed here will give money, depending on whether you control the light side or the dark side, or it can give energy. Both of these things are going to be used for different costs. Cards that are placed here can be used in attack. Now, what's interesting about this game is you can attack anywhere, anytime, but the regular folks, the natives of an area, are going to fight against you, or maybe not even help you, or not help you at all, or even fight against you. But if your card matches where you're coming from, they won't bother you at all. And if it matches the place you're going into, they will help you. So it's useful to have the cards to attack these areas. But there's a way to draw more cards over the course of the game, so you might have more than one card for any particular area. The problem is when you use this card, which is only the dark side bread plains, as opposed to both of them, when you use this card, it's discarded. There's also wild cards that can be used in any spot on a territory. And then there are special cards which you can place on these two special areas here. Most of the time these cards have costs on them. So this one costs 4 energy and 1 gold, and it lets you bring in 5 people or up to 5 people from Limbo. Some let you draw more cards, so hopefully you'll have more territories that you can attack people with or bring people back. Some let you build the buildings on the board. Those are the things that are going to score you points. Or move from one spot. Some give you the starting token so you can go first next turn. So players will have these, and they're going to have these cards in their hand. And they also have bluffing cards in their hand, which is essentially a blank card which you can play somewhere because you want to fill in all these spots. Now everyone has the money and the energy and has attacking. Some spots like this one, bringing 3 people back, costs money, but they're going to be different based on who you have. So you can see here the trolls have an extra attack on them. The orcs have an extra where they can get gold. The demons have an extra spot where they can build a building. The necromancers have a spot where they can bring more people back from the dead, which makes sense. The night elves have another place where they can attack. And then over on the other side, the costs here, this is one spot you'll go to build buildings. Warp portals, which let you move from the light side to the dark side and vice versa. Capitals, which can give you more points when you build them, but only one can be built per region. And temples, and these are going to have different costs based on who you have. So you can see that for the Amazons, the warp portals are cheaper, while their capitals cost more than the elves. While the humans, when we compare them, their warp portals are the most expensive, but their capitals are the cheapest. And the halflings here, they're kind of even. They're 4 and 4 on both sides. So again, you're going to be combining these two boards together. So each round of the game is going to have players placing cards on their board, and then one by one revealing cards and possibly attacking, using the cube tower, moving around the board, getting cards. And then once everyone's finished, you'll start another round. But between each round, you'll also be scoring, which will again be for buildings you have on the board and for areas that you control. That's just a basic overview of how the game works. So that's pretty much it for Immortals. This cube tower, of course, is something I like. I think the idea of it being randomized is a really neat idea. The negative is obviously if the table shakes, cubes can fall out. So you have to be careful where you put this and careful bumping the table. As you can see, if there's cubes in here and the cube tower is bumped, okay, the table actually didn't make them fall out. But this game is all about fighting. Wallenstein and Shogun were about fighting, but they were a subset. It was about building the buildings. And this one's about building the buildings too, but you're going to take them from other people. But it's this whole light versus dark dichotomy, which I find kind of fascinating about this game thus far. Because you'll have big forces over here, but your light side is not doing so well, and your forces get decimated. You're like, yes, forces die. Now they'll come back on this side of the board. And you got to use your cards wisely because you're taxing and getting energy from them so that you can use the energy to bring more forces and build those buildings which win you the game. Of course, building buildings makes targets on you where other people come after them. Definitely, if you played Wallenstein and Shogun, you're going to probably like this. Although, again, this one has much more attacking. Like in Wallenstein, for every turn, there was at most 2 attacks. Here, there's almost guaranteed to be 2 attacks every turn, and it might be more depending on what cards are played. And with attacks going around, they're a pretty big deal. And when someone takes a territory, if you control a territory, even if you're not involved in a battle, and this is kind of a weird but cool thing. So if Joe attacks Monica on the light side, and Joe defeats her in the territory Breadland, for example, and I control the dark side of Breadland, Joe still takes that card from me. Because even though I control dark side, he just wants to battle on the light side and gets that card. And I was about to use that card to get some money. Well, now I'm irritated. I got to get that territory back. So I might have to either build a portal so I can go through and fight Joe, or use my dark side forces to go in there and take that territory back. While I'm doing that, though, Sally might attack this side over here, and then she takes that card from Joe. And I'm not even involved anymore. Or I might get that card by drawing those one-time use cards from the deck. And so I find all this fascinating, this back and forth stuff. Is it as good as Wallenstein and Shogun? We're going to need more plays to tell you about that. Right now, I'm kind of even on it. It misses some of the more in-depth, cool things that Wallenstein does. It kind of focuses on the attacking. It has these different races that you put together and make something. Although I'm not quite sure how interesting and unique the races are when put together. I'd like to see more on that. This is fascinating as normal. The card play is very intriguing, and the light versus dark side thing. So far, I'm enjoying it. We'll come back in a few weeks after we get the actual final copy, and me and Sam will give you our final opinions then. But until now, it's kind of a brief overview of Immortals.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.